Special thanks to Motion Array for sponsoring today's video. In this video, I'm going to be showing you 5 ways that you can take your video editing to the next level. Let's get into it. So in this video, I'm going to be showing a wedding that I filmed and edited as an example, and the first tip that I have is to cut on emotion. Now there's a few different ways that you can interpret this. One way is to actually not cut at all. Let's take a look at this example here. You'll notice that I don't really cut away that quickly. I want to prolong the emotion and the reaction when they see each other. So you can see I held on that shot for a pretty long period of time. If we take a look here, it's around 10 seconds or so before we actually cut away from the shot. Now another way that you can cut on emotion is by finding small movements or facial expressions that you can cut on. Let's take a look at this part of the sequence where I utilize that. So you can see I cut on the emotion, their expressions, and specifically the minor movements in the footage. Now another way I like to add some energy and engagement into my footage is by adding effects and presets. And for this, I like to use Motion Array. Motion Array is a marketplace with tons of video assets like video templates, stock footage, photos, music, and sound effects. They even recently came out with a new AI voiceover tool. And if you're curious to see how that works, I did make a review video going over it. I will link that video in the top corner there. Feel free to go check it out. But what's really nice and the things that I use the most in Motion Array are their plugins. They have a bunch of plugins that you can use directly in your editing project. So I'm going to be showing you a few of them that I use in this project. So if we skip forward into our wedding edit, we'll skip to the party section. This is where I like to use a lot of plugins and different effects to really add a lot of energy. For example, here on this cut, you'll see that I added the gleam effect by Motion Array. And this is one of the several effects you can use from Motion Array to really spice up your footage. If we go back to the effect, you have a lot of different controls here. You can see that I boosted the intensity, but you really don't need to go that far if you don't have to, but it's a good way to add some energy to your shot. I use the gleam effect a lot in my videos just to add more energy to them. Now one other plugin I like to use from Motion Array is called the flicker effect. So you know, it's party time. Let's say if we wanted to add like a strobe, you can easily do that by using this effect. So if we search for flicker in our effects panel, we can easily click and drag this to our clip, and you'll notice that we have a lot of different presets we can choose from. For example, maybe we want RGB flicker, we can choose that. We can change the amplitude to make it more pungent. So let's say if we want to turn it up to 2, you'll notice that it's very noticeable. You can also turn it down if you need to. You can always change it to maybe 1 or so, and it's a little less saturated. You can also mess with the frequency if you don't want it to be as fast. You can turn it down a little bit so it doesn't flicker as fast. So let's say if we add maybe 0.5 and maybe 2, you can see we just added some color and some nice energy to that shot. It just adds a lot of energy to the shot. If you want to check out Motion Array, I'll leave them linked down in the video description. You can even get started with a free account today. There's a lot of free assets on the website that you can use directly inside your projects. And if you decide to go with them, you can save up to $50 off an annual plan. Thank you, Motion Array, for sponsoring today's video. Now let's take a look at the next tip. All right, so for the next tip, let's go to the first dance section. And the next tip is to use eye trace in your edits. So eye trace essentially is where the viewer is looking at on the screen. For example, you're looking right at me in the middle, and if I cut to something that is displayed directly in the middle, you can see it's a very smooth edit because when I go back and forth between those two shots, your view doesn't have to change that much. So you can apply this into your edit to make your edits more smooth. So if we take a look at this edit, if we hover over our mouse cursor, this is a good way that I like to do it. We can keep track of where the viewer is looking. So if we click play, you can see that it's pretty much smooth throughout the sequence. So you know, I'm not cutting from shots where they're on one side of the frame going to the other side of the frame. Everything kind of follows smoothly in that edit. Now, another way that you can take your edits to the next level is to apply color grading. Right now, you're looking at the finished look, but if we turn off the color grading layer, you can kind of see where we came from. So this is the before and this is the after. Here's a full screen comparison view. I won't go that deep into color grading in this tutorial, but there's several tutorials on my channel that you can check out to see how to do color grading in your edits. You can use LUTs, different effects. Motion Ray even has some effects that you can use to kind of add a more cinematic look to your footage. And another way you can take your edits to the next level is by implementing sound design. Remember, it's not just the video content that people are experiencing. It's also the audio and the soundscape inside your edit. So in this wedding film, there's obviously background music, but I also added some sound effects here and there. If we click play, you can hear the music, but you can also hear some of the birds and ambient noises behind them. So by adding a bunch of different sound effects, music, and voiceovers, you can really craft and tell your story in a more professional and polished way. Now, when it comes to sound design, it's tricky because you want to make sure that the music is underneath your voiceover and everything sounds right. So if you're looking for ways to make your voice pop over your background music, I will link a video where I go over how to do that inside Premiere Pro. I'll leave that video right up there if you do want to check that out. But that does it for this video. I hope you enjoyed, and we'll see you guys in the next one. Take care.